Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Just to check here, can you guys hear me? Where's everybody from today? Wow. Got Brazil, Ukraine, Spain, India, Chile. Mexico, did you see that, Mel?
That's amazing. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Vitor. Hi, and Renato.
Costa Rica as well. That's cool.
Hi, Sharam. Awesome. We'll just give it a couple minutes for everybody to enter the room. Got a really exciting topic today, and I'm really happy that everyone took the time out of their day to come join us and learn something new. All right, so maybe we will give it a start. More people from Chile, amazing. All right. Okay, hopefully everyone knows who we're here today, but thank you for joining us on another day of VanHackCON 2020. Today it's me, and our main topic today is immigration paths and work permits and relocation. So, yeah, you have myself and Melissa today helping you take through kind of all the immigration policies and procedures of what's going on today. So this is your team that gets to bring it to you. So my name is Karan. I'm a RCIC, so a regulated Canadian immigration consultant in
Sorry, can you hear me, Karan?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I had some technical issues. Sorry, guys. Amazing. Well, as Karan said, well, I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant and relocation specialist. Welcome, everyone, to the webinar today.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the quick agenda. We don't have a lot of time, and immigration has a lot to cover. So this is what we're going to go over today. And keep your questions coming. We'll try to have some time at the end as well. I see a lot of people are chatting, which is great. Okay, so today what we're going to go over are some of the immigration programs in Canada. We're going to talk about express entry. We've also decided to talk a little bit about PCP&P and kind of what PR pathways there are. We'll also touch on global talent stream. Melissa will take you through that, as well as relocation and what we do here at VanHack to help relocate you once you're ready. And then some updates on COVID-19 and how they relate to immigration, not just the virus in general, because we're not probably the best person to talk about that. And then we're also going to go over some questions of yours. So stay tuned for that as well. We always get really interesting questions from the community. So, as we're talking, feel free to shoot your questions on there. If you have a thought of a question, I'm sure somebody else does as well. So, yeah, please share your questions. Okay, exciting. Why don't we get going? So we'll start talking about kind of the Canadian immigration pathways. So, you know, for a lot of you, this year's, if so, I just kind of want to take the time here and really get a good understanding of what your pathway to Canadian immigration would look like, and what the reality is right now. So most people who are applying for permanent residency are going to apply through a thing called express entry. And this is the first step in order for you to be able to get citizenship, so a Canadian passport. So what is express entry? So we can maybe talk about that a little bit. Express entry is just it's a large, it's kind of like a pool that you get drawn into. It's what ends up happening is you put your name down for express interest into Canada. It's the fastest way to get your permanent residency in Canada. Time frame is approximately like 6 months. And what ends up happening is there's draws every, it's hard to say, but 2 weeks to a month, there's draws. And they'll invite people depending on your score. So your score will be determined by a variety of factors. I'm actually just going to click to the next slide really quickly. So just to talk about express entry, we'll go back. But yeah, express entry essentially will allow you to check your score and see how you're doing compared to the other people who are also applying through this route. Oh, I'm hearing, am I audible right now? Ooh. Okay, great. Video frozen.
I can hear you, Karan.
Okay, great. Okay, great. All right, I'll continue, guys. Please let me know if you can't hear me at all. Okay, anyways, go back to express entry. Yeah, it's a 6-month processing time. You basically put your name that you're interested in coming into Canada, and they check you on a variety of factors. So the factors that you are being judged on are things like your age, your education level, your language level, your work experience, and your experience here in Canada as well. So these kind of factors are some that will come up with your score. It may not be helpful, but score like in the last draw was about 472. So what you would need to do is to sort of see whether you want to apply for permanent residency right away and you can do this from like currently, you know, the only thing you'll need to do is to complete a language test as well as an assessment, an education assessment. So one of the companies that does that is WES. But basically, if you have a master's degree, we want to see what the eligibility is for it when it converts to a Canadian diploma or degree. Once you complete these 2 steps, you can actually submit a profile for express entry and you can know your score. By knowing your score, you're able to then see, you know, how do I get more points? And that's where our temporary, I'm going to go back here, our temporary residence comes in. So what ends up happening is, so in order to get more points for express entry, one way you could do that is by either studying or working in Canada. All right. So by working in Canada, usually once you complete a year in Canada, you add about 70 points to your profile. So most people, so if you're outside of Canada right now and you're younger than 30, you have really good English and you have a master's degree, let's say, you know, maybe you're able to apply right from your home country. And if you can do that, the only steps you would need to take are to do your language test, of course, and your education assessment, the WES. Once you've completed those, you can apply for express entry. For those of you who cannot, and that's a majority of people, so don't feel bad if you're in that pool, you're going to then want to accumulate more points. And the way to do that is to, like I said, have some work experience in Canada. Perfect. So how do you get work experience in Canada? The fastest way to get a work permit in Canada is really just that Global Talent Stream program, and Melissa will talk about that a little bit later. What I wanted to just touch on, and I think it might be kind of evident already, but under express entry, there are a few different categories that you can qualify under. So the first is Canadian experience class. This is for people who have 1 year of Canadian work experience. Once you gain one year of Canadian work experience, you get to qualify under this program. And the eligibility requirements are a little bit easier. I'll show you a comparison between the two in just a moment. If you don't have Canadian work experience and you only have work experience outside of Canada, the only one you'd be able to apply under is federal skilled worker. And the requirements are a little bit more difficult, but you can still definitely do it. I won't really talk about federal skilled trades because I don't think it'll affect too many people here. And there's already a lot of information to cover. So I think we'll just skip that. But I do also want to quickly touch on the provincial nominee program. Basically what that is there's a bunch of provinces in Canada that give the ability to add points to your express entry. So if one of the provinces here in Canada nominates you for permanent residency, essentially they give you 600 points into your express entry profile. Those 600 points will usually give you the draw, so you'd be invited in the next draw. So it's almost an automatic draw. The one that we get asked a lot about and one that we use here at VanHack quite frequently is the BC PNP. So that's the province of British Columbia here in Vancouver. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So why don't we do a quick comparison between Canadian experience class and federal skilled worker?
Karan, I think there are some technical issues. Is everyone like are you hearing us or not really? Okay, apparently it's good now. Yes, we can go ahead.
Amazing. Okay. No problem. It's always nice to take a break. I also heard, I was able to see a few questions, which is always good too. So I'll definitely try to get to your answers as well. But one request that we did get was to talk about BCPNP, and we will. One question that I did see was somebody was asking if any remote work that you're doing outside in your home country can be considered Canadian work experience, and it cannot. So it only can be work experience that is done within Canada for Canadian experience class. That means on a work authorized work permit that you're here on. Yeah, that would only count. Okay, so just a reminder, this is a Canadian experience class. And this is federal skilled worker. So for people who are currently outside of Canada and haven't accumulated 1 year of experience in Canada, you'd apply under this. Just to show you the difference, you need at least 1 year of continuous work experience from back home. So a lot of you will have that. Some of you still need to work on that, but that's just the starting point. The education level required is secondary school. You probably need higher anyways in order to have enough points for express entry. But language ability is a little bit easier to qualify under CEC. Excuse me. So if your NOC is in the B category, we'll talk about NOC as a different day, but basically every job that you have can kind of be broken down and categorized into a different NOC branch. So for instance, any of you who are developers or software engineers, which is going to be most of you, you'll fall into just so you know, the NOC A category, where you'll need this language score. I'll translate that for you really quickly because CLB probably doesn't mean a lot. But for IELTS, CLB 7 is basically getting 6 on all of your scores. And that's the same here. So you would need a 6 on all of your IELTS scores as your minimum requirement. For NOC B categories, if you are for CLB 5, I believe it's a 5 in every category and 1 category of level 4, but you'd want to check exactly which category is it. All right, there's no funds requirements. So you don't need to show how many funds you have under Canadian Experience class, another big advantage. For federal skilled worker, you would need to show that you have these funds available. That money there is also all in Canadian. You can of course use a currency conversion. You don't need to move your money into Canada or anything. Okay, and before you can also apply for federal skilled worker, there's also another point checklist, let's call it. So you need to get at least 67 points on the selection factors grid. So I'd remind you, if you're applying under this, to check that as well. Okay, so we'll talk about BCPNP, just because if some people that do apply for the for a work permit even through VanHack. So let's say a company does hire you, gives you a job offer. Some companies do elect to go down this BCPNP route. Any of the companies that would, it would only be for jobs in British Columbia. So Vancouver would be the most popular place, or Victoria. But it is a somewhat popular program. So we thought we'd talk about it because a lot of people do ask about it. So I'll start by saying under BCPNP, there are two ways to apply. I'll just call them the slow way and the fast way. The fast way means that it's going through express entry as well, whereas the slow way is just, it's a paper-based application, so it's not online. The difference and how you know which one you'll be applying under will really depend under whether you've done your IELTS or CELPIP and your WES. So I'll say that part again. Basically, there's a slow way and a fast way to apply under BCPNP. What ends up happening for either way is that you would submit an online application to BCPNP and let them know you're interested, and you have a job offer in BC. Once you've submitted that, it typically takes it's kind of another draw, but once you've actually applied for BCPNP, it takes about 1 month processing time for the tech pilot. The tech pilot's pretty quick. Usually the process takes about 2 to 3 months if you're not getting a job in a technical role. But if you are, they know that there's a huge tech demand in Canada. So your processing time gets done in about a month. I've seen them as quick as 1 day to, those 30 days. And then once you're invited, if you've applied under the express entry route, you would basically submit your application for permanent residency online. And it would take about 6 months for processing. If you haven't done your language test or your education assessment, typically the processing time when you send in your paper application is between 15 and 19 months for permanent residency. So most people do like to go down the fast route. The nice thing with BCPNP is it also makes you eligible to apply for a work permit. So the nice thing with BCPNP is gives you a temporary residence as well as it puts you on the path for permanent residency. So it's a pretty popular program, I would say. And it's something to definitely look at. What you can do to prepare yourself for if somebody does give you a job offer in Vancouver and you want to go down the BCPNP is to complete these steps. Because if a company gives you a job offer and you still haven't done the language test or your WES assessment, that process for you can take 2, maybe 3 months, depending on how slow things are. And as we all know, a lot of things are slow right now. I would definitely complete those beforehand. Just to give you a time frame, your language test will last for 2 years. And don't forget, it's the IELTS General. And then for your WES assessment, that lasts for 5 years. So even if you do this part, the nice thing is that if somebody does give you a job offer, you're ready to go with both of these steps. So you can apply under the fast express entry route. Okay. That kind of brings us to the global talent stream a little bit. So the other way that we mostly apply for work permits is the global talent stream. Why is it sort of important is that you'd want to be able to get Canadian work experience in order to get a better score for your permanent residency. So most people who come in, they're gonna get that work experience first in Canada and then apply for permanent residency. So typically if an employer wants to hire somebody outside of Canada, they need to apply. So they need to apply for an LMIA. So some of you have heard of that, but the Global Talent Stream is an LMIA application. It's just a very fast-paced one, which means that So if somebody, let's say, wanted to hire you and you were not working as a software engineer or software developer, that process to bring you over to Canada would take about 1.5 years probably. Because you're applying to the Global Talent Stream, this program has specifically been introduced to Canada in order to speed up the process for tech developers and engineers, which are really sought after in Canada and needed, to basically fast track that process. So these are some of the wages that you'd sort of expect as a minimum wage. That's one of the requirements as an engineer, developer, and web as a web developer. You can see the comparison there, Vancouver and Toronto. Yeah, it's a great program, and really, and then I think the next step is just kind of understanding the documents and the what's involved in it, and so you can prepare yourself better for the Global Talent Stream. So maybe for that, I'll just pass it on to Melissa to discuss some of those.
Amazing. So perfect. Thank you, Karan. Yes, I would like to talk a little bit more about the steps for the Global Talent Stream program. So the first step is to apply for the labor market impact assessment. Okay, so it's the company is the one that will apply for this authorization. Okay, the immigration authorities will actually give this authorization to the company in order to hire a temporary foreign worker. And this application, even with coronavirus situation, is taking around 2 weeks. So immigration officers are still working on these applications. And this is, as Karan said, is a fast track program for candidates in the IT industry. So it's very fast to receive this labor market impact assessment. Then the second step is to apply for a work permit application once we will receive the LMIA approval. So in this second step, the application will be done online. Okay, so for the work permit, we don't have any official timeline now, since, as you can imagine, with all the situation, coronavirus, some visa centers are closed in some countries, are still closed. For most of them, they are already open, but just keep in mind that you will need just to be flexible in this second step, because it's taking a little bit longer, because in a normal scenario without coronavirus, for the work permit application, it will take around 2 weeks as well. So, and also I would like to give you an idea about the processing times now. We are receiving approvals for people that already apply in the first semester of the year. And the fastest one that we received, it took us around 3 months to receive the work permit approval. Okay. Then once you receive the work permit, the work permit approval, the third step is that the immigration authorities will request your passport. Okay, you will need to send your passport, and if you are coming with family members as well, and then this passport will return to you with a visa. The government of Canada will stamp a visa in order to come to Canada, and this third step will take around 7 business days. Then for the last step is that once you will be in Canada, once you will be at the airport, you will apply at the border, with an immigration officer in the airport, you will receive your work permit. So these are the timelines that we are seeing now. If you can go to the next slide, Karan, please. Okay, so I would like also to talk about the documents. This is very important. So like this, you will have an idea of which documents, if you would like to apply, which documents you will need to prepare, okay? Then, well, the most important is to have valid passports, at least 2 years, because the validity of the work permit through this, through this program, the Global Talent Stream program, is 2 years. Then you will need as well a medical exam. This is just for some nationalities. Not all nationalities will need to provide a medical exam. And then you have as well the biometrics. Once you will apply for a work permit online, the next day you will receive a letter from the government requesting your biometrics. So you will need to go to a visa center near from your city and provide the fingerprints. For people that already provide biometrics before, if you came as a visitor or any other permit, you don't need to provide biometrics. Then you have the marriage and birth certificate. This is very important if you are coming with a spouse and children. Next slide, please. Perfect. So we have as well the proof of qualifications. This is the most important part of the application. Why? Because actually you will need to demonstrate to the government that you are that you have enough experience and that you meet the requirements of the job being offered in Canada. Okay, so what do you need to prepare? For example, the employment reference letters from your former employers and diplomas and transcripts. If you don't have a diploma, you can still apply for some occupations. For example, for programmers and developers, you can still apply if you don't have a diploma, but you will need to have enough experience to demonstrate that you have like all the skills to be eligible to do the work here in Canada. Okay, then you will need as well your resume up to date and also a certified translation. So all the documents that are not in English or French, you will need to find a certified translator in your country or in Canada. Then for applicants in the province of Quebec, you will need to apply for a certificate of acceptance, now called a temporary selection in Quebec. And this is also very important. And you need to keep in mind that this application, you will need to submit it at the same time as the labor market impact assessment. So we submit at the same time here in Quebec, both applications. And then once you receive the approval, you apply for the work permit. And just in this point, I would like just to mention that for Quebec, the processing times are a little bit longer than for the rest of the provinces. It could go to 2 to 4 weeks to have the LMIA and the CAQ approval. Amazing. So for people that are coming with family members, for the spouse and children, they are eligible for the same processing times as I explained before. And for the spouse, she's eligible for an open work permit. And the children under 6 years old, they will need to apply for a visitor permit. And the children 6 years old or over, they will need to apply for a study permit. But don't worry, actually, you will receive all our support because we will give you exactly all the instructions on which type of permits do you need for you and your family members. And then we will help you through all the process. Next slide, please. Perfect. So I also would like to give you an idea about the cost. So you can also start saving some money for the application. These are the government fees, okay? For the work permit application, well, as you can see, everything it goes around 150 Canadian dollars to almost 300 for the work permit, the spouse permit, a study permit, child visitor permit. And then we have as well the biometrics fee. So for singles are 85 Canadian dollars. And if you are coming with the family members, for everyone, it's 170 Canadian dollars. Amazing. Then we have the additional costs that you also need to keep in mind. The translations, medical exams, the prices can go from 200 to 300. It depends in the country. And also, well, you will need to take in consideration all the relocation expenses as well. And if you are coming with pets, you will also need to check with the airline the cost about bringing your pet with you. And also, when you arrive in Canada, you will need to pay some taxes at the airport for the animal. Okay, you can go to the next slide, please, Karan. I would like also to talk a little bit about the relocation support, because it's important to let you know what VanHack also can offer you through the whole immigration process. We can also include this relocation support. We for example, once the person is approved, I have a call with them and I explain them, the most important documents that you will need to present to the immigration officer. I will prepare you for your arrival. I will also guide you with all the paperwork. Once in Canada, you will need to apply for a social insurance number and also for the public medical insurance in the province, okay? So I will give you all the instructions on how to do all this paperwork. And then you will receive as well a city guide. This city guide will include all information about how to settle down in your new home in Canada. And in this city guide, we will include as well special offers from some providers. For example, we have some deals from some providers from internet or telephone. So you will also receive these special offers that we all only have in VanHack. And also, as you can imagine, we will receive as well all the advice with the rules about relocation during these pandemic times, because yes, you will hear more about these COVID regulations. Karan will explain you a little bit more about this later on.
Actually, right now. Okay, let's maybe talk about some of the updates that's going on to COVID-19, specifically related to, again, immigration. So what we're finding is right now, like obviously things, just to go back in time and tell you what's kind of going on in Canada, COVID became kind of a very important part of immigration, or has impacted immigration since about March 19th, when everything kind of went in lockdown. So since that point, we hadn't really seen any movement at all with work permits or a lot of PR applications, like everything. Sorry, was my audio off?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, shoot, that was some really good information. Unfortunately, I'm just kidding. Okay, no problem. I'll start there again. All I was going to say was this, that I kind of want to give a quick timeline regarding the COVID-19 and what it's looked like over the last little bit. So since March 19th, hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but since March 19th, that's kind of when the lockdown went in place earlier this year. And since then, we've all tried to been like the immigration team here has been trying to adapt to understand how to kind of go back and visit all the work permit applications that were stalled and all the permanent residency applications that were stalled. So since COVID has started, I think we've seen, at least in Canada, the information that we're getting from our ministers here. So the Minister of Immigration here has also said that, we're going forward, immigration is still a really important part here in Canada. I think this year we had planned on, at least for permanent residencies, bringing over 350,000 permanent residents, and they've committed to at least, I believe, like 411. I think it was 401 next year, 411,000 next year, 421 the next year. So there's no end in sight, it seems like, at least for now, for immigration in Canada. But things have definitely slowed down. So that's kind of where we wanted to see where we are right now. So some of the things that have changed, obviously you might know in some of your different countries, the visa application centers Some of them have opened, and some of them remain closed or offering limited service. So keep checking back with them. Usually those visa centers are important when you need to, one, complete your biometrics, and two, submit your passport for stamping. So if you aren't able to give your biometrics, keep checking back. Obviously, some of you may have heard, like I think the major ones that are closed are right now in Brazil, and India is starting to open up, but we're still waiting until they're open for work permit applications to give your biometrics. Entering Canada as well has changed a little bit. So you now, once you do get approved, you'll need a quarantine plan to come. And there's an app that Canada has put out where you can kind of input a lot of your, you can self-identify as whether you have any COVID symptoms. So you kind of have to use some of the new tools. So when you come to Canada, you have a plan of where you'll be staying, how you'll be getting your food, things of that nature. And we, of course, would work permits. So the only people who are actually able to enter Canada are people who have work permits approved and have a job offer here in Canada. So if you have an approved work permit and or you get your application gets approved and there's a company here that's offering you a job, you are eligible to enter Canada. Of course, you got to be asymptomatic and things of that nature. Like you got to be healthy, but yeah, it at least gives you the ability to enter Canada. Okay. Now, on a more positive note, a lot of people are saying you lost me. If you are unable to hear me or it's sort of frozen or anything, just try to reload or reconnect on your side, and it should fix it after that. Okay, yeah. On a more positive note, so obviously there were a lot of changes going on this year and things kind of slowed down, but over the last 3 months or so, work permits are back to being approved. So we've seen work permits approved, we've seen PRs issued, study permits approved. So the nice thing is things are starting to move finally, and we're hoping that this just continues now that everyone's kind of got their footing a little bit. So over the last 3 months, we've seen over 35 work permits approved, and people have started to relocate to Canada and Europe. And then that's specifically with VanHack. So yeah, it's honestly a really great ability that we're able to do that. So a lot of positivity, and there's a lot of things that you can do as well. Hopefully that's the message that we're giving you, is that while you're waiting, while you're working from home, while you're, experiencing life under COVID, there's a lot of things that you can do. So some of those is get those documents ready that Melissa was talking about, your IELTS, if that's applicable to you, your language tests. And also, I think it's always a good time to spend time like learning and getting better. And so what better opportunity to do that than Premium Academy? So it's really good. This is obviously Black Friday here and coming up tomorrow. But you can get it now as kind of the Premium Academy starting. So if you are looking for any sort of interview practice, the team here is great in helping you practice for your interviews that you'll have, inside VanHack and outside. They'll review your profiles, and there's an exclusive Slack community you get to be a part of, where there's a group, even if you have more immigration questions, a really great immigration group on Slack where if you post a question, usually somebody's there with an answer, either from the community or Melissa or myself as well on there. And there's exclusive webinars you have access to. The great Black Friday deal is not only is there a discount on it right now, but you also, when you sign up for the Premium Academy, you get 1 extra month for free as well. So good, if you're going to get it, it's a really good time to go for Premium Academy, especially, like I said, when you're focusing on training and learning right now. It's an amazing opportunity. Okay, so we're gonna maybe go to some of your questions and answer those. So I've been seeing a lot of questions pop up, so we'll try to get through a lot of them right now. All right. Maybe we'll start with the last question just from Delusha. Is global talent stream visa processing the same at this time? So currently processing time is, as Melissa mentioned, a bit of a question mark. So it used to be for the work permit itself, takes about 3 weeks, but 2 to 3 weeks. Now it's really a question mark of when you can do your biometrics and when the application is assessed. So honestly, if you're able to do your biometrics and things, we're seeing anywhere between 2 to 6 months. And I know it's a big range, but work permits have only started to be approved over the last 3 months, so it's hard to give an exact number. But hopefully we'll be a bit more intentional with that number shortly.
Yes, we have also another question here from Antrix. Do I need to apply for PR even after getting job permit and LMIA approval? So for these, actually, once you will have your LMIA approval, it's better to apply right away for the work permit. You can actually apply for both, if you are eligible for express entry, you can apply as well with a dual intention. You will need to be very careful to just include message to in your application that saying that you are also applying for a work permit at the same time. But usually people, it's better like they do first the job, once you receive the job offer and the LMIA approval, to apply first for work permit. And then once you are here in Canada, it's better to apply for a PR once you are here, settled down in the city or the province, okay?
Perfect. Okay, maybe next question. Somebody asked, the cost of application support is included in premium, or do I have an additional cost? Good question. So if you get a job offer and it's done through the VanHack platform, Melissa and I will assist and help with your work permit application. We also help companies apply for their end of the LMIA process. So there's no additional cost in terms of using our services for that. We just simply help you. There's of course, some cost for your application itself for the work permit. Yes, but the application support is included, and you don't need to be a premium member. It's just if you get a job offer through VanHack for that. Good question.
We have another question here, interesting question from Sajad. I'm having visitor visa. Do I have a chance to come there and find job, then convert it to work visa? Well, actually, Sajad, at this moment with the coronavirus situation, it's not suggested to come as a visitor because you will need to have an approval letter to come to Canada as a worker. Is only the essential people are allowed to come to Canada. Visitors are not allowed to come to Canada, but at the moment, unless they are joining some family members that are PRs, permanent residents, or Canadians. Okay, so at this moment, it's not possible, but once everything will be back to normal with the situation with coronavirus, yes, like you can come as a visitor, and then if you receive a job offer, you can apply here in Canada. There's a temporary policy that allows people to apply if they are in Canada already at this moment and apply for a work permit. But normally, without coronavirus, the regulations is that it's better to come back in your country and then apply from your country for a work permit.
Okay, well, I know there's a lot of questions, so we'll try to get to them as quickly as possible here. I'll try to give quick answers, but yeah, okay. So the next question from Michael, so what should we do first? Get a job offer or apply for a Canadian work permit? Good question. If you basically apply for a Canadian work permit, it's just going to get refused. There's got to be like a program that you're applying under for a Canadian work permit. So my recommendation, most of the work permit, the easiest ones are to get a job offer first. Usually the only ones that are applicable for a work permit without going through a job offer, you might want to look this up, but it's called IEC. I won't spend too much time on it, but it's usually for mostly like European countries, Australia, things like that, where they can apply for an open work permit, before coming to Canada. But most people, if you're not part of one of those countries, for the IEC program, so that's International Experience Canada program, you typically want to get a job offer first.
Amazing. So there's also another question from Jose Antonio. It is true that for Mexicans, it is exempt from, they are exempt from the LMIA, where, well, it's not depending nationality. It's most depending actually in, if, for example, the type of program that you are applying. Okay, so for example, in this case, you want we are talking about the Global Talent Stream program, and all the people that goes through this program will need to apply for the LMIA. They are not any nationalities that are exempted. Like you, all the nationalities needs to apply for the labor market impact assessment. And on the other hand, for example, for another type of programs for Mexico, there's also the NAFTA. In this type of program, you can apply and you are exempt from the LMIA, but you will need to check if you are eligible first.
Perfect. Okay, maybe we'll do a 2-in-1. So Karthik asks, should I mention IELTS score and WES in my resume while applying for jobs in VanHack? To be honest, probably not. Most employers, I don't think, know what IELTS and WES are. Yeah, I typically, I don't think I would. And then Michael, how do you prove work experience if you don't have reference letters from past employers? Good question. I would check with your previous employers to see if you can get reference letters. You may not have them now, but if you ask, a lot of times companies will give them to you. In addition to that, you can use documents like, if you're from Brazil, I know you have, what's it called? Melissa, do you remember? The labor book.
Yeah.
CLT. Yes. Okay. Ukraine, I think, has a similar labor book. You can use things like your previous contracts. Pay stubs are really helpful. Any proof really that comes from the company, even like relieving letters. I know in India it's very popular to get relieving letters. So anything like that can be seen as proof.
We have here another question from Tuva. Where is it? Okay, well, for another question. I lost the question from Tuva, but let's check here. What else? Do you see another interesting question, Karan?
Ooh, there are so many. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of them are coming through right now as well. When I get a job, sorry.
Very good one from Victor Del Rio. Does the company assume the cost of the relocation? So for the relocation, some companies are taking these relocation fees. You will need to check directly once you will receive your job offer, which package is included in your contract, okay? Some will include for example, your flight, your apartment for the first month. It depends. So maybe you will need to check once you will receive the job offer, which relocation package is included.
Cool. I got a really good question from Mohammed Shahzad. This is something I probably should have talked about, so I think it's a great question. But he asked, when I get a job offer, how long in Canada do I have to work for the same company? Are you bound to a certain amount of periods? So the work permits that's issued to you under the Global Talent Stream is a 2-year work permit. It is a closed work permit, so that means that you are tied to work to that employer that's mentioned on your work permit. And your spouse would have an open work permit, so they can work for any company in Canada. Now, how long do you have to work for them? I mean, you don't have to work for them. If you decide to leave, quit, you don't like your job, that's okay, but you just realize that you cannot work for another company until they've given you the Global Talent Stream LMIA and you change your employer from the current one on your work permit to the new employer, which can take about 2 months. So yeah, and you can stay in Canada, even if you get somebody else that asked, if you get fired or you decide to quit, you can stay in Canada for the duration of your work permit. You just can't work for another company until that work permit, until you've applied to change, until your work permit has changed to the new employer.
Great. And another question from Clayton. If I get fired, what happened with the work permit? So this is a very, very interesting question, because what happens normally is that you will need to, you can actually stay in the country as long as your work permit will be valid. So as we said, the work permit for the Global Talent Stream program is valid for 2 years. So you can stay as long as it will be valid, but just be careful that you cannot work for any other employer because you have a closed work permit. If you would like to work for another employer, you will need to apply for a new LMIA and go through the whole process again. But if you receive, you will need to receive a job offer. If you don't receive a job offer, you can just stay as a visitor.
All right, we have another about 9 minutes. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. So I'll knock off 2 here. One from Anas. So we shouldn't apply for immigration until we get a valid job offer. I would say if you're eligible to apply for permanent residency and that's something that you want to do, apply when you can. There's no reason to wait unless you just don't have the points, right? And so that's something to check. There's calculators online, but I would check the calculator for the Canadian website. It's called the CRS score calculator on the Canadian website, and you can check your score based on your language test. Good question. And Calvin asked, does the work permit process need the IELTS? I know I talked about IELTS and the WES quite a lot, but the work permit process does not. It's only needed if you're applying for permanent residency or for BCPNP. So if you're applying for the Global Talent Stream, it is not needed. Do you have a question, Melissa?
I'm trying to search here. Okay, I have a question from Sumit. If I'm doing master's or study visa and I'm available to get a full-time job offer with LMIA, will there be complications if I want to switch to work and pause my studies? Well, no, there's not a problem, Sumit. If you receive a job offer and an LMIA, you can apply for a work permit. So you can have both a study permit and work permit. And you can pause your studies, but just be careful because you have a validity in your study permit. Just make sure that if you would like to finalize your studies, you can, as I say, you can have both work permits and do both at the same time in order to finalize your your master's, for example.
Cool. I really apologize if I'm getting anybody's name wrong, but George Sarabia, you have a question. Is there a special visa for digital nomads working for companies outside of Canada? To my knowledge, there isn't. I don't know if Melissa knows of any, but not to be honest, and like any information you're getting here, I would always check with another immigration consultant based on your profile itself. Like there might be work permits available specifically for you, but for digital nomads, not that I know of, but good question. And Paulo asked, I'm guessing this is about the reference letters, but the letter must be recent. Just needs to be after your work experience that you had there. So even if they give you the reference letter the next day, as long as it has information about the wage, your duties, your job title, and most importantly, the times that you worked there, so the dates in between, that's the most important part of the reference letter. It can be any time after your work experience there.
Let's see, another interesting question. We still have some minutes.
Yes, and we still have lots of people here eager to have our questions answered. Hopefully we'll see all of you in Canada soon. Let's see.
So Diego Galvao is asking for the NOC 2173, does it need a Canadian engineering degree? and if it's possible to have a translation of their degree in Brazil. So yes, you will need to have a diploma for the 2173, and then you can use your diploma in Brazil to apply, and you will need just to translate this diploma.
Cool. Question: does it make sense now to do the English test in West done now while we're searching for a job? Do you know what the fees are? To be honest, I don't know what the fees are. I think they kind of vary in each country, but I think each process, I'm assuming, to be honest, would be between 150 and 300 Canadian dollars. But honestly, I don't know the exact fees. Not sure if Melissa has any better idea. But does it make sense to do the English test before? Basically, if you want to check your score in Express Entry and you want to get if you think you're close based on what your language test will be, yeah, you can't really make an Express Entry profile without doing your language test. So if you think you're close to PR and you want to give it a shot, maybe especially if you have a master's, it might be good to do the English test if you think you have a pretty close chance with your score. So.
And Patrick has also another interesting question. I'm verifying my master's with West. Do I still need to verify my bachelor's degree? Yes, it's always better to do the equivalence for both diplomas in order to have as much of points that you can get in the Express Entry.
Okay, somebody asked, can we apply for a non-tech role? I'm not sure if there's non-tech roles on the VanHack platform. I mean, and you can always apply for jobs within VanHack or outside. The nice thing with applying for jobs within VanHack is usually those companies are more on board with doing the immigration. Otherwise, you're having to explain it to them yourself, or getting someone else to do it. And some companies are a little, more hesitant because they just don't know the process. So the great thing with companies is they get the lucky services of myself and Melissa. So can you apply for a non-technical role? You can, of course. The global talent stream might not be of much help to you if you're applying for a non-technical role. At any point, is it possible to change the work permit from a closed to an open? Not usually. Most people, you have to be eligible for an open work permit. So the only ways that would happen is if your spouse was studying or working in Canada, there's a few instances, but I won't even discuss them just because they're few and far between. But there are some options, but most people will be tied to their closed work permit. If you have applied for permanent residency in Canada, and you are in Canada and you have a work permit that's expiring within the next 4 months, you can typically apply for something called a bridging open work permit. So while you're waiting for your PR to be assessed, you can continue to work on an open work permit in Canada. So that's one of the options. That was bridging open work permit, if you want to look that up. Thank you again. A lot of you have stayed with us while we're going through these questions. We really appreciate it. I know it's late in different times as well. So the fact that we still have your attention and you're here is that's very nice. Really appreciated. But we are winding down. I'm just trying to see if there's any more questions. Maybe we'll take just one or two more. Any questions that you see, Mel?
Well, let me see. Well, they are asking as well for the time, like how long it takes once you receive, for example, your work permit, how long it takes to arrive here in Canada, and also how long it takes since you receive your job offer. So As I say, it depends in the nationality now because of some visa centers are closed in some countries, but we will say that the visa center is open and you already provided biometrics. So for the fastest application that we saw, that we received the approval, it took around 3 months to receive the approval. This person applied in Colombia, okay? So he applied, and then he was also applying in Quebec. So we were doing the CAQ, and then he received the approval, and he was able to receive the approval of his work permit after 3 months. So this is one case that I would like to share with you, just to give you an idea and to explain you that it's possible to relocate. It's possible to receive an approval, even with the pandemic situation. So don't hesitate if you would like to apply for any job, and we will be there to help you through all the processing, the immigration process.
Okay, I think that's
any other question, Karan?
I think that's a great place to end it. If you do have more questions and we didn't really answer them here, and you do have some, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our contact information is there, so we can connect with us by email or via Slack. If we get a lot of messages, just bear with us while we get to you, but we will definitely try. But there's a lot of good questions on there, and I think just thank you everyone for your time today. Yeah, it's huge that you've taken the time out of your day to learn something a little bit more about Canadian immigration. Like I said, we hope to see you all in Canada soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Take care, guys. Stay safe. Bye now.